Alright, let's try this again. Come on, video, load, load, load. Not loading, huh? There we go. Audio check. Come on, video, load, load, load. Yeah, it sounds fine. Not loading, huh? Alright, let's play some games. I have to say I am a fan of visual novels. Audio check. Come on, video, load. My favorite would probably be Fate Stay Night, I guess off the top of my head. There are a couple other ones that are pretty good. I would like to play Gates, but I don't know how the F you get that in the United States. Alright, let's go ahead and add this game. Capture E. Go. That's good enough. Actually, I would like it just a tad more, I think.
眩しかった日のこと。そんな冬の日のこと。
And I'm gonna move the screen over just a little bit. There we go.
確かに幼い頃から丈夫な方じゃなかった。
True, I wasn't very healthy ever since I was a child. Wow, that audio is blazing loud. There we go. Even so, I attended elementary school like all the others, and during summer breaks I've often played until I was utterly tan. June, shortly after my entry into middle school. The day after I ordered a swimsuit for the next month. My first hospitalization. On a day before the semester's midterms. On a day when the first drops of rains were so cruelly falling amidst the pure white of the overcast sky. Of course, the first time it happened, all my classmates came to visit me almost every day. And when I was released, they came to my house to play on the weekends. But that was only the first time around. Autumn into winter, winter into spring, a vicious cycle. Hospitalization, release, clinics, and hospitalization again. Before I knew it, even my classmates I once called friends turned into acquaintances, and then turned into strangers. As if every changing seasons, I was being erased from their collective memory.
どうやらいい気がしないらしい。
It seems that to all those normal people,
普通に生きている人にとって私の存在ってのは
my very existence was an unpleasant fact.
だから消されたようだった。
And so it looks like I've been erased.
いくつもの季節白い梅雨空を誰とも言葉を交わす必要もなく過ごした。
Spent so many seasons, so many white overcast skies, without the want or need to converse with anybody.
私の英語の教科書は1年生の中間テスト以降まっさらな状態だった。
For that matter, my English textbooks never changed from that of a first-year middle school student before the first midterms.
そこで私の時間も止まったらしい。
That is where my time seems to come to an end. Eight years later, early summer 2004, protagonist. The summer, flowing sweat, gigantic electronic scoreboard, and the driver's license examination facility. Lit up all at once. My eyes and everyone else's looked up for our respective numbers. 237. 237. And of some 8 columns of lit text, sure enough, my examination number was shining in the mists. A nearly empty train car, perhaps thanks to the beautiful afternoon. Almost alone in that train car, I was headed back home from the examination hall. My left hand held a new traffic regulation handbook, and my breast pocket held my brand new driver's license. So now I've got a driver's license as well, I muttered somewhat happily, but no strong feelings behind it. I never particularly wanted to drive a car. I never particularly had any motive for it. It was just that my colleagues and the technical institute both recommended that I at least get a driver's license. That night, when I told my parents I've gotten a driver's license, they merely replied with a, "I see." And when I asked if I could borrow the car just for a test run, they instantly and curtly said just one thing. No. Well, I didn't want to drive a car or anything. The response was all too expected. Those are my parents for you. The next day, I awoke with chest pains and went to the hospital. Sickness and I generally had nothing to do with each other, which is why I found the ER waiting room to be utterly boring. And when I just thought they were through examining me, they ordered an x-ray and some blood tests, then they left. And again, I was left waiting for a long, long time. I already polished off 3 of my volumes of Shonen Jump, and it was just starting to get onto the 4th one. They admitted me to the hospital right then and there. It seemed that my new driver's license, which stayed snugly in my breast pocket, would have to wait a long time for its turn to come. Protagonist, Autumn 2004. Right around when the all too noisy cicadas have finally gone silent, I once again found myself in the hospital, as per usual. Of course, it wasn't as if I'd been there the entire time. I came and went, came and went, a futile cycle. My first surgery was a month before, and after that I started doing 5-minute commutes to and from the hospital by moped. And from then on, I was hospitalized, discharged, ordered to a clinic, and hospitalized again and again and again. When I still had no clue what PET or ERISA stood for, in no time at all, several months have passed already. As my appetite decreased, my medications increased. I can feel my own physical strength atrophying away from me. I kept imagining what my legs were getting thinner. But the needle of the weight scale rudely informed me, it's just not your imagination. And yet I kept looking at myself with a detached interest, as if it were happening to somebody else entirely, as if I were looking at a scene on a TV, or the like. My mind could not grasp what had suddenly happened to my body. Nothing within me was telling me that this was real at all. And that's why, even though it was happening to me, I kept looking on, as if it was happening to someone far away. Winter 2004. A day of winter, around when the Christmas trees had vanished from the streets. I was discharged home as a kind of year-end trust treat. It seemed like an exercise in total transcendence, but still, it made me slightly happy. I traveled back home and had not seen it in a long time in the midst of the freezing rain. Strangely enough, my entire family was there. My parents, who have never much talked to me, came out to meet me with terribly stilted smiles. And my little sister, whom I've never had a pleasant word, had made my favorite cream stew, and fried shrimp just for me. They just made me sit at the end of the table. They peeled tangerines for me. They were cruelly kind. It was an impressive display. At this point, a little thought occurred to me about my new driver's license, which was still stuffed away in my pocket. That perhaps would end for the license without it ever being known to have any use. And surrounded by a trio of stilted, strained smiles, I kept that thought, as if it were someone else's business, with dispassion, ambiguity, and total disinterest. January 2005. A new year began, and I returned to the hospital. But on this day, instead of my usual 4F room, I ended up in a conference room of sorts. They took me there. And then, my father and the doctors had a little talk. I joined in. Well, they talked to me. So this was their so-called announcement. They said it in a terribly roundabout fashion. They told me that I was going to die. Let's see. That was my only reply, and I had no other words. It was the only thing that left my mouth from the beginning to the end, and the doctor's ballpoint pen flew across the paper as if in a response to my words. Those are probably the hospice enrollment procedures, businesslike to the last. My father was the same. So it's this simple. It's the only real thought I had. That day I transferred from 4F to 7F, from a 6-person room to a private room. It was a little different from the other wards, this 7F. First of all, the floors were sparkling clean, and second of all, the ceilings were higher than I've ever seen. The rooms were very nice, and had a large window which the warm daylight sun streamed in as if by design. The windows only opened a little. I tested them out. My head would just barely fit out of one. The color of my ID bracelet has changed as well. The bracelet that I've worn ever since my first hospitalization. The one that had my name, blood type recorded on it. Its color now has changed from blue to white. A high ceiling, a white vinyl bracelet, a window that could not open more than 15 centimeters, a TV program celebrating the new year were still playing when I transferred to this 7F. And it was at the dawn of that very year that I met her for the first time.
Narcissus. 冬7回
Winter 2005, 7F. There was this kind of like lounge at one of the sides of the corridor, across from the nurse's station. This generally deserted place had held a few couches and chairs, as well as a large TV. Stupid programs commemorating the new year were still being broadcast on that 28-inch screen. And there was this girl who looked absolutely bored watching that absolute boring TV. Short, in pink pajamas, a white bracelet on her wrist, just like mine. Impressively long hair that almost reached down to her hips. Hey, do you find it that interesting? There's no deep purpose in the asking. Simply, I had nothing else to say. So I started talking to her.
別に
Not really, she replied. It was her only reply to me. She didn't turn to face me at all. And she kept looking on with boredom at that TV, as if it didn't even exist. Then don't watch it. Even as I thought this, I sat down in the chair next to her. And side by side we watched the TV. Nothing else to do. Nothing else we could do. So we sat there silently and watched TV. The New Year celebration programs, as per usual, a useless array of comedians and oddities. Every so often, the stupid MC, shrill laughter resounding drily in the white, sun-drenched lounge.
ねえあなた
Say, tell me. The girl suddenly started talking to me, but her eyes always glued to the TV screen.
あなた何回目
How many times is it for you now? What do you mean by that?
ここに7階に来たの
How many times have you come here to 7F? Sorry. I have no clue what you're talking about.
そう、初めてなんだね。
I see. So that's your first time then. So she's seen my confusion and about her question and then coming to the right conclusion.
他に誰もいないし、私の役目だから。
And since there's no one else around, since it's my duty. Duty?
そういうルールなの。
There's this rule. I nodded slightly. She explained that the rule was someone here should tell the newcomers the truth. I knew nothing, and I understood even less. And as if I did not even exist, she slowly started her speech.
それじゃあ、よく聞いてね。
Listen carefully. Her words, spoken methodically, one by one. There were little differences. Were a little different from all the other ones I've heard from the doctors about this place. In their business-like grips, syntaxes, they told me, this place where one waits for medical advance. This is a place where one heals one's heart, and perhaps they might have been correct in that general sense. But according to this girl, that was just the party line. The truth was that the 7F was the only place in the hospital where medical treatments did not take place. This was just a place where you waited for your life to come to an end. Those were her words to me. I thought so as well. I'd felt it even before she'd spoken.
私、2回目だから。
See? This is my second time. Second time? Doing what?
ここに来るの。
Coming here. And then she explained to me that nobody on 7F stayed for an initial hospitalization, all the way till death. While there were zero possibilities of being cured, you were sent home if your condition was stable. But if it worsened again, you'd return here. That cycle only ended in death. Whether it was at home or here on 7F, always one of the two, you're going to die. No way of escaping it, it seemed. And with that, permeating her every word, she informed me that this was her second time up here.
じゃあ、一度しか言わないから。
I'm only going to say this once.
ここからはよく聞いて。
So listen closely. She continued speaking, all the while staring at the blank TV screen. This wasn't an idle chit-chat about when the lights out or when the kitchen was or anything like that. This was something completely different. The third time you are discharged home, resign yourself. There won't be a fourth time. You'll never go home again. If you ever want to escape, head towards B station, not the A station. Eat nothing. That's the simplest shortcut. You'll leave the smallest burden on your family that way. It was as if she packed to the brim with the matters like those. This is probably an oral tradition, relevant only to those who are going to die, and kept by those who came here for that purpose. So is this duty that what you were talking about?
ええ、そうよ。
Yes, that's right.
いつかあなたも初めて来た人には伝えてね。
So do you remember to go harm it for the newcomer yourself someday? Okay. With those words, she slowly stood up. She casually tossed her long hair. It grazed against my nose.
じゃあ検温の時間だから。
I have to get my temperature measured. So, then she turned back, started walking down the corridor. Now completely deserted, save for me. The lounge held only the laughter of the TV and the white flowers by the windowsill. In the end, she didn't even look at me once. A few days later, New Year's celebration were over. In the middle, and the high school students were beginning a new term. And just as ever, she and I sat in this lounge, staring blankly at that TV. This is so boring.
そうね。
So it is. So we said, both of us keeping our eyes on that screen. Hey, is this place always this way?
質問の意味がわからない。
I don't understand what you're getting at. I'm getting at how always it is deserted. Other than the nurses, doctors, and the help staff, and other than her, I hadn't seen a single person. Did everyone go home for the new year or something?
その理由を知りたいの？
Do you really want to know? Well, I didn't mean...
じゃあ言わない。
Then I won't tell you. Hui disinterestedly tossed back and forth this exchange that not even could be called a conversation. The slight breeze coming through the window that would not open more than 15 centimeters. From time to time, her hair would sway, and as if in agreement with the flowers at the windowsill, too. This is how we killed time, day after day, staring at that boring, good-for-nothing TV. Oh, here the two of you are, an elderly nurse said as she rushed towards us. From what I've seen at the nurse station, she was apparently in charge of 7F. Well, Miss Satsumi, any fever?
大丈夫。出てない。
Fine, no fever. Satsumi. So that's her name. You really shouldn't be moving around like this. Do you understand? Everyone's worried about you.
別にいいよ。
Well, whatever. Come on now. What kind of response is that? Oh, children's these days. The nurse continued to scold and henpeck a while longer. And the girl named Satsumi, just pretended not to notice at all. She simply stared straight forward at that boring TV, paying that fussy nurse a little heed as she could. I'll be coming later to draw some blood, okay? With those words, the nurse went back to the nurse's station. Hey, you know? Well, mind if I call you Satsumi? I asked this as I stared at her white vinyl ID bracelet, and at the blood type, and at the name written there, and... Is something the matter, Satsumi?
どうして呼び捨てなの？
Why are you calling me that? Huh?
年下のくせに。
You're younger than me. Hey, why am I younger than you?
別にそう思っただけ。
Nothing. That's just what I thought is all. It wasn't like I was offended that she called me younger than her or anything. It's just that no matter how I looked at it, I was 5 or 6 years older than she was. That's why I took out my driver's license from my breast pocket and handed it directly to her. See? I may not seem like it, but I'm 20.
やっぱり年下よ。
So you are younger after all. She only took a glance at my driver's license before handing it back to me. I don't really get what you're saying.
どうでもいいじゃない。少し上なだけよ。
Doesn't really matter. I'm just a little older than you are. That's all. She murmured as expressionlessly as ever. Her eyes were fixed on that boring TV. Alright, but it felt as almost she was gazing at something far away. After they'd taken my AM vital signs, I snuck past the nurses and boarded the elevator. When I got to 1F, I walked out of the patient's clinic doors and walked outside of the hospital. My goal was the place that I've been told about not long ago, far away, B station, not nearby the A station. It wasn't that I wanted to escape or anything. At 7F or at home, none of us died anywhere else. And that's what I've been told. And this B station, which this girl named Satsumi had apparently been to many times. That's why at least just once I wanted to see this place with my own eyes. It's not like as if there's going to be a guard on duty. Even so, we were inhabitants of 7F, different from all the other patients. And thinking of vague maybes so early in the morning, I headed towards the station. My legs settled into a lazy gait as I glanced alongside at the people commuting to work or school. After about 25 minutes of this, I arrived at the front station. Roughly 4 buses stops away, I calculated it out. Wow, there's a lot of people here. Was my first impression at B station. I stood out a bit because I was in pajamas, but I felt that if I could just buy a subway ticket, I'd be able to go anywhere. No questions about it. Still had no idea why I've been told to go to B station and not A station. But it looked like as if it'd be easy to escape if I really wanted to. She must have come by here many times herself. So, why did she remain at 7F right now? Station. In this early morning, I stood there, thinking those thoughts as I watched those people rapidly pass by me. That night, after lights out, bored of manga and unable to sleep, I wandered throughout the hospital, alone. Certainly it was supposed to be allowed for after lights out, but we of 7F had a particular kind of liberty. So in this presence of no light, in this pitch black stillness of the lounge. That was where I found her. Hey, have you been looking outside today?
うん。
Yeah. The darkened interior. She did answer me, but she continued to stare out the window as if she had not. I immediately launched into what had happened today. Oh, by the way, I went out to that station today. B station. Just as you taught me.
そう。
See. But her response did not change. I thought that she'd react with something. Because she's been there before too. Now that I thought about it, the fact that she was here, mean that she had no intention of escaping in the first place?
私、もうすぐ帰れるの。
I'm going to be going home soon. What? She opened her mouth abruptly and spoke as if she'd seen right through me.
でも、次で3回目だから、
But next time will be the third time.
もう会えないかもね。
So we may not see each other again. Yeah, I guess. Probably what she was talking about with the temporary discharge from the hospital. She told me that no one was discharged from 7F more than 3 times. Unlike the elderly, given the progress of our disease, this meant that all the more to the young people like us. Her, who did not see each other again, was filled with that kind of meaning.
ねえ、あなたはどちらを選ぶの？
Yeah. Which one have you decided on? Decided on?
どっちで死ぬつもりってこと？
Where are you going to die? When that word, death, came up so abruptly, I was at a total loss for words. I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet.
そう。まだ1回目だもんね。
I see. It's just your first time after all. She murmured, looking desolate. Certainly, it wasn't as if I was going to be existing here forever. Just like everyone else, I would be admitted and discharged, slowly growing weak, and someday, I'd have to make that choice in the end. Here in 7F, or at home surrounded by the fake smiles.
私は家は嫌。
Don't want to die at home.
だけどここも嫌。
But I don't want to die here either. Then, what will you do?
別にどうもしない。
Guess the only thing
自力で歩けるうちにどこかに行くだけ。
is to go somewhere while I still have the strength to. So, can't be. This girl who stayed here on 7F when she could have escaped any time she wanted. When I thought of that, do you have any other place to go?
あなた、私を引き止めたいの？
Do you want to stop me? What?
それとも 一緒についてきたいの。
Or do you wanna come with me? Well, no, that wasn't what I was talking about.
じゃあ聞かないで。
Said don't ask. She stared out that window as she spoke, dispassionate, not looking at me once, same as ever. But then, just then, her usual expressionless face looked very sad to me. I was a newcomer to 7F, just recently taught by the third discharge of the last. And she was a girl who was soon to be discharged with the second time. But still, I did not feel anything real about what was happening to me. But would I too come to wear a face someday? The rain at morning twilight. Sometimes sleet, sometimes snow. Always coming down. And I was sitting there, watching TV in my usual place. 7F felt as devoid of people as it always had.
面白い。
Anything interesting? No, completely boring. She walked to my side. Saying no more, she sat down in the chair next to me. And that's how we began watching TV on this very day as well. She was probably in the same boat as me. Nothing else to do. Nothing we could do. Oh. I've never seen her respond to the TV before. Is there something the matter?
別に。
Not really. Those were her usual words. But her response was anything but usual. And I looked at the screen, interested in anything that could move or so. There are nature scenes being displayed on the TV, beautiful hills and dales, burgeoning on the trees and the flowers, and the vast spread of white flowers in the mist. I remember those flowers from somewhere. They looked very familiar to the white flowers that decorated the windsows. Those be the same flowers? No, same ones as over there. I pointed to the flowers by the window as I said
違
this.
う。
No. Huh? Really?
種類は同じだけど、厳密に言えば違う。
They're of the same variety, but they're not strictly the same. She glanced at the flowers by the windows for a second, then went back to gazing at the TV. She told me they were different, but I couldn't see any distinction between the two. And it meant nothing to me whether the flowers were the same or different. But what did it mean? Something was the girl. Sorry. But what did it mean? Something was this girl who usually never said a word more than she needed to. That was a weird sentence. She was conversing in a rare form today, which is why I decided to follow along. Did you happen to know a lot about them? The flowers, that is.
別に。
Not really. Really? I don't see the difference. The flowers on the screen and the flowers to the base to her side. I continued to talk as I stared vacantly at the two. Look. Are those orchids or lilies? It's either pure or white, right? I had no interest, yet I kept trying to make conversation. But she resumed her silence soon enough, and with her usual lack of expression, she continued staring at a boring TV screen. And just when I turned back to the TV, I resigned to the fact that I'd get nothing more out of her.
ナルキッソス。
Narcissus. Oh, what?
ナルキッソスよ。
Those are Narcissus. As she answered, she turned to face me for the first time. Her hip-length hair swaying. She pointed to the TV screen and looked at me. The ID bracelet on her wrist was white. Her skin was white, just like the flowers on the screen. I swore I could see a tiny smile on the face that was looking at me for the first time. And that's chapter 1. And I'm going to go ahead and break the broadcast here. That was pretty interesting. It reminds me of a lot like, what's that 4-leaf game that they made? The one about disabled girls. But I don't know, this has a pretty dark atmosphere to it. I do like a lot of the writing. Some of the translation seems pretty rough here and there, and I messed up my fair share of lines. As usual, I'm really bad at this narrating thing, so never ask me to do any voiceovers for you or anything like that. But a very interesting story so far, and looks like things are starting to lighten up a little bit, and maybe they could find a silver lining in their dark, clouded life. And I do expect that's how this is going to go. It's probably going to be a very, very touching story. Probably very heartbreaking as well. And unlike most stories, a lot of these visual novels actually end in a pretty bad story. I mean, not poorly, but they don't seem to have a happy ending. They usually stick to the ending that has most impact to you. Um, which is, I prefer that more. It gets you thinking, and it impacts your thoughts more, and I like that. Well, anyways, we'll see if I do chapter 2 stream or not. If you like this stream, let me know. And you can catch the replays on my YouTube. Comment there. Alright, good night, guys.